Welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited today because we're doing something new and we've not done this before. Two guests who wanted to be interviewed together because I think there's a really interesting story between the two of you that I don't fully understand yet. So hopefully by the end of this interview we'll get to it. So Jeremy Hemming and Jacob O'Shaughnessy, thank you for inviting me over to your studio, Jez.
Thank you.
I'll ask you to introduce yourselves to us.
Cool. I'm Jeremy Hemming. I'm an activist and multidisciplinary artist. Recent graduate of University of Tasmania School of Creative Arts and Media.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
And I'm Jacob O'Shaughnessy. I'm a painter. dabble in a little bit of drawing as well, and but mainly I just paint, and I love it.
Yeah.
Also, just finished at UTAS art school. Finished our honours. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and this is Bjarni, everyone. We've heard all about him all this time. He's finally here on the show. Hopefully he's going to... Yeah, he's such a good boy.
Yeah,
He's just excited because he's in another new space.
frightfully well behaved.
Very
yeah,
handsome.
so let's get back to you guys. So, so you, the bond that you have, if I can call it that, comes from doing the honours program together.
Yep.
Oh, we're friends before we did honours. Met during undergrad.
Met during undergrad,
Yep.
but I think honours brought us a lot closer.
Closer together.
Because, being stressed and
Yeah.
scared together at the same time, just
There's always this unique bond of honours, and so a cohort.
yeah.
Even if they drift apart after honours, they always had that foundry, let's
Yeah.
call it.
A foundry.
Melting
Foundry.
pot.
Yeah.
Place where all the different bits of metal get melted together and stuff. They've always got that connection going forward.
That's a beautiful metaphor.
That is a very good metaphor.
So let's dive into that melting pot. So before we started recording, you sort of alluded to just that. So you finished December, and we're recording now in January, and so you've needed a bit of a break afterwards.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
Why?
it starts in February and you go to November, December,
Yeah, pretty much.
and you sort of don't get to take a break in the middle. You
No.
can choose to, but it's not particularly wise because there's just so much work you need to get done. And so mid-year break and the mid-semester breaks in the middle of each semester, it's sort of just spent writing anyway and
Yeah.
drafting and redrafting your thesis or painting or
Yeah, 100%.
photographing and printmaking.
Going in on the weekends, on your days off.
Yeah, it's not really weekends either.
Yeah, making art. You
And
don't really
so-
get to sleep in, so it's just getting up and
Yeah.
getting into it straight away.
You don't notice it while you're doing it, but because you've got this grad show, which is like this point that you're working towards all the time. And once the grad show's gone, you're like, if not burnt out, you're very exhausted.
And like 2 weeks before the grad show, all hell breaks loose. Everyone's just on edge.
Yeah, true. Everyone's
And it feels like,
poking everyone.
everyone's just pretty narky, but
Yeah,
it's part of
true.
it, I think.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
when I say narky, I mean we're just,
not in any sort of vindictive way.
not in like a
Everyone's
bad
just
way,
like,
just like we've got
No.
so much to do, so
yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you have just this one goal at the end of a
And
year.
you've been thinking about it every minute of
100%.
every day for the whole year.
you dream about it pretty much.
Yeah. Or don't dream if you're not sleeping.
Yeah. Just awake all
Just
year,
night terrors.
Yeah.
pretty much. Waking up in a sweat.
But we loved it. It was
We
great.
did.
There you go. I wanted to get back to that. So
Loved every minute of
each
it.
of you separately. So what? I guess what inspired you to go to art school, maybe take us back before that. Your individual decisions for that, and then your decision to stay on for honours, because that's a thing here in Australia.
Yep.
That isn't common across the world. Like I have an honours degree in engineering, but it was all wrapped up into my. It's basically like say
You just-
the thesis, right,
yeah,
or the exegesis or whatever it is. But it's this thing of so here in Australia it's done in a particular way, in particular in art schools as well. And there's an importance to the honours program that I don't think we've discussed with anyone else on the podcast. So I'd love to get into that. So take us back to before art school.
Sure, I can give it a crack if you like.
And bring us up to the
Yeah.
present day.
So I started with my burgeoning artistic interests. Didn't really started a little bit later than most people, like if they came straight out of college, for example, and they were 18, 19, 20, or they'd be drawing since they were a kid. That wasn't my pathway. I really didn't get into it until in my mid-20s. My brother found me a job as learning under him as a canvas stretcher. And then when you're a canvas stretcher, you obviously meet a lot of painters that want you to stretch their canvases. And I was like, oh, maybe this is what I've been looking for, because I was a bit sort of, not wayward, like a wayward boy or something, but I was a bit sort of directionless in my 20s, very directionless. And so I wasn't until 26, 27 when I found out about the art school, and I found out about the possibility of studying there. So I didn't make a tremendous amount of art before I even went to art school. Really started drawing. And I have an uncle that was a woodworker. So I went there with the idea thinking that I was going to be a woodworker. But however, I don't mind sharing this, but I was a woodworker for the wrong reason, because I thought I was going to be a woodworker so that I'd impress my uncle in a way. And then I realised that was completely the wrong motivation for going to becoming an artist. I shouldn't do it to impress other people. It's something in me that needs to come out. And so I dropped out in the middle of the degree because I realised that. And I was like, oh, I've spent a year and a half of my degree trying to impress other people instead of impressing myself or making myself happy. So I came back. When I came back, all my first cohort had all graduated honours. So I came back in the middle of second year. My first cohort was graduating honours, and that's when I met Jacob and everybody else. I progressed through undergrad, started making stuff for myself. I still love woodworking a lot. I've managed to do that for myself. However, now I've evolved into photography and printmaking as well. And that's definitely something that's much more just for me.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So that questioning why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then going away and coming back. Wow, that's really powerful. Yeah, it's really strong of yourself to be able to say, okay, well, no, this isn't why I should be here.
Yep.
But then realizing where, and then maybe like, was it the right time, and were you with the right cohort?
Yeah, because my cohort had left, and then another cohort had left before I got to Jacob. So Jacob was like 2 cohorts after the one I started with.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked out very well when I came back.
Yeah.
It was a very fantastic cohort indeed.
Nice.
Yeah. We all just got along really well, I think. So, which just adds so much to the experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is really important. So,
yeah. What got you there?
For me, I was always very interested in, or especially as a kid, lots of my friends and stuff would be into technology and gaming, but for me it was always just trying to be out in the wilderness, and I was always very very playful and creative. I think when I was a lot younger, I had family members who just sort of loved seeing that from me as well, and my parents loved the fact that I was just so getting out there and getting out in the bush and going wild and feral and just having so much fun. And I've always just loved doing that. And I think drawing as well, especially throughout, I think maybe ever since I picked up a pencil, I really liked drawing, expressed sort of the imaginative worlds that I would create as a kid, and throughout high school and college and all that kind of stuff, art was always something I really wanted to do. And I started out as a drawer, and I actually had a teacher in my last year of school in college tell me to paint. And she said, I want you to paint how you draw, which I was like, well, how can I do that? It's drawing, painting, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, it was just about not really thinking about it and just starting it. And that's when I started painting. and I started fine art school in 2020, and then shortly after that, COVID hit, and I pretty much spent the first year, pretty much all year, at home, and I struggled quite a bit painting at home and not being able to be out in that space and community. But then once we were able to go back, I just think gradually it just kind of just worked out in the way where, meeting people and actually having that space and having people, give feedback and spending time with others who were really into the things that you were making. Just gradually and slowly up until, I guess, the last couple of months of my undergrad, it was like, okay, yeah, want to do honours now because I'm really serious about this. And throughout all that undergrad, like with Jeremy and everybody, it was just really good to be friends with everyone. And I think that's also kind of why I'm an artist as well, because you meet so many people and you learn from each other so much. And honours was definitely testing that, and I think in a good way. So yeah, I think throughout my whole life I've just kind of dabbled in creative things, and then all of a sudden went to art school and it was like, okay, yep, this is what I want to do. So
Too good. You mentioned COVID. So, yeah, this sort of post-COVID, and I know here in Tassie we were much luckier than many
yeah,
people around the world. We didn't have such a long lockdown and so on. But yeah, being at home, working alone, but then coming together, and you've both talked about this sort of sense of, well, you used the word friendship. I was going to say community, but I don't think that's a word you used. Maybe you did, Jez. But
Yeah.
what is it about being in that cohort together and these friendships that form through the intensity of the process that you're each going through?
I think because a lot of what we learnt at art school was we had to be comfortable talking about our work with everybody and our ideas and showing things that we might not necessarily think like we like or think are good, but being able to just be vulnerable with people, even like some people you've just met, about what you're making work about, and showing them your processes and progress in what you're making. I think kind of being thrown into that not forces you to be friends with anybody, but you're all in the same boat, and it's like, okay, and we're all learning and we're all at the same level. And so, and there's like different connections between people's ideas as well. And I think just you kind of just slowly grow together in that way, I think. So
Yeah. And there's popped up in my research a bit is that even though we're obviously there to learn, although at the School of Creative Arts they don't necessarily teach techniques, but they do sometimes, but it's a lot about how to think through issues using art as your thinking process. And that is important, but also it's like in most circles generally belonging is sort of regarded as sometimes the third most important thing to people. And so having these cohorts to figure out how to think through art with is really crucially important to our health, having this sort of sense of belonging. So we've got this cohort that we've been through this experience with and we belong with.
And how would that play out? Do you have like regular crit sessions? That's a relatively new concept for me. I never went to art school, as everyone knows. Were you doing the crit sessions regularly? How did they play out, and how did that sort of friendship and support and mutual, that growth together? What does it look like?
well, with the crits, pretty much every single class that we had, we would have to do a crit a couple times a semester. So it was very, very ingrained in that in the units. And I think, when you have to do like electives and stuff, you pick. Some people had similar interests and others didn't, and even if you're in different units as well, like with electives, you still would come together and talk about what you're making, at lunch or something like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
I suppose another way to think about it could be that throughout honours you're always working towards this grad show and a thesis or exegesis
Yeah.
that supports the grad show. All your subjects are just supporting those two things. And so all your electives, your core subjects are just crits every week because we're trying to refine this writing and this body of artwork that's supporting the writing, or vice versa. And then all your other electives and that sort of thing support those subjects. That's this big sort of pyramid that's holding up the grad show and the thesis on top of it.
Yeah.
And belonging forms around that.
Yeah, sort of inadvertently, I suppose. Although perhaps advertently, perhaps it is intended by whoever really came up with that kind of teaching structure, which I think originated with the Bauhaus pre-war Germany Bauhaus school.
Yep.
That sort of teaching mode that they utilise at the school.
Yeah.
You do have this sort of forged, inadvertent belonging.
Yeah, and it was forged back to the original.
Yeah, I suppose that's because I'm dabbling in
but
metalwork. I
that's
don't
why
know.
it's the perfect metaphor, because it is. It's like, yeah, you are being forced together, because if there wasn't that structure,
I wouldn't know most of these people.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't know anybody, really.
I'm probably more than a dad. Not that you can't be a decade apart and know each other, but I'm like a decade apart in age with Jacob, so statistically unlikely that we probably would have naturally been friends
Yeah.
outside of the art school context.
Indeed, yeah. And have you kept in touch with others in your cohort?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I went out to a cafe for a little meet up with one of my other friends the other week, and they were really keen on catching up with. They were from the music school, but they were very keen with catching up with more art people and music people and doing more regular catch ups.
Nice.
We actually had a very positive experience for our honours program. You should sort of meet a lot of the people who are doing honours in music as well. Different sort of creative artistic medium, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, so you've forged these friendships and this shared sense of belonging in a particular space, and then you will leave.
Yeah, totally. It is a bit, even though it happens over a little while, like the month of November's when it's sort of fizzling out and ending, it does still sort of feel like someone's gone, bang, you don't have this thing to connect you anymore. Now we're all going, it's been like 2.5, 3 months and I haven't seen any of them. And I'm like,
It's quite jarring.
super jarring.
It's quite jarring.
And you're exhausted, you're burnt out, and then suddenly you're not seeing them anymore. So it's like, I'm not even socialising anymore. I sat on the couch, curled in the fetal position under a blanket. That's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but you know what I mean.
Well,
Just watching YouTube for hours.
That support network that you had on a daily basis, probably.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
If you're like,
suddenly it's not there anymore.
yeah, if you feel like maybe you're wobbling a bit, for the lack of a better word, or you're wavering, and then all it takes is going to visit someone else's studio for 15 minutes or something like that, which I did more than once a week with Jacob's studio because we were right around the corner from each other. Jacob could hear if it was my footsteps coming on, not down the corridor.
I could always prepare myself. Because I was right along the atrium, I'm on painting level. And I learnt people's footsteps and rhythms because it was so noisy along there. So I'm like, oh, yep, that's Jeremy. Oh, no, that's,
Just as much, if not more time in Jacob's studio than I did in my own studio.
Yeah.
I liked having visitors. It was nice. So
Yeah.
I think
it's interesting. Yeah, that sort of So how do you then sort of keep that sense of belonging between at least the majority of you or some of you, and how do you perhaps start to find new spaces to belong in, or how to new groups of people to belong with? I mean, we met at a meetup that Maggie Jeffries kindly organised.
Oh, how much do we love Maggie?
I know.
Maggie's great.
Isn't Maggie awesome? Yeah.
They'll be blushing right now if they're listening.
That's good.
But yeah, Maggie really enjoyed the experience on the podcast. Said, Tim, can we what if I just bring a few friends round to my studio? And this is how I met both of you and others, and it was interesting actually just how you all sort of knew each other, but it wasn't necessarily from the same cohort or anything like that.
Totally.
It was just, you're part of a wider community of artists or a support network.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you describe it? I mean, these how these encounters that you have in the art world, and how do you,
True.
as individuals, keep them sort of going? Do you?
I don't know. I suppose you let a lot of them fall to the wayside a bit inadvertently, just because this big institution is what's keeping you together, and replacing that big institution with just like your energy to keep all these things together all the time when you're actually quite different people. It's just like too much energy for one person. If everybody was super committed to it, I suppose, or if you had, let's say, a communal space that you all managed to gather together, like a studio or gallery space, it was keeping you together as well.
Yeah.
Then perhaps that could help keep you together. But I don't know. It's a lot of work.
I found that
Not in a negative,
Don't worry.
yeah, I know that, you know, obviously through undergrad and honours, a big thing as well each week was sort of going around and asking everybody, you know, is there an opening on this Friday or Thursday or Saturday evening? And we'd all go together and go to these openings. And I've reached out to a couple of people and asked if there's any openings that they're interested in going to. And I think that's a good thing to sort of carry over, because everybody likes going to openings. They're really fun.
We love a wine and dine.
Yeah, love a good
opening.
wine, which is always really good, and look at some artwork. And so, I mean, for me, that's carried over, you know, and I sort of use that as well to connect with people. And I also do just make sure that I try to message people every now and then to see how they're going, or if I see them posting something on their Instagram and I want to know about it, I'll message them. It's just in the moment sort of things each week. Sometimes you don't see them for 2 weeks, and then sometimes you see them the third week every single day. So
Yeah.
it's just how it goes, I guess, because we're not being brought in every single day because of, you know, deadlines and assignments and all that kind of stuff with honours. But
I suppose because you don't have this overarching structure that you're working towards anymore, it's suddenly turned into like a goal at the end of a year, and we have this support network to get there, that now it's like taking care of ourselves day by day, and our plans are suddenly become much more hour by hour or day by day.
Yeah.
And you don't have this support network anymore.
out in the big art world,
Yeah.
you know.
No. So two possible avenues of inquiry here, and I can't decide which one to go first. Eeny, meeny, miny. I will go for what are you each working on right now?
Oh.
So yeah,
question.
these
Very good question.
setting goals, or projects that you know. So what now that your honours is behind you and you're now looking forward on the journey, what's first? You know, you sort of referred to like day to day, hour by hour. But is there anything that you're working on particularly right now?
I've got my first solo coming up in July, start of July. So, and I've just had that residency at Salamanca Arts Centre finishing in December. And I've been spending a lot of my time currently just jotting down ideas, notes. It's all very much still up in the air. And during that, trying to find a more permanent space to actually make. So, I mean, that's what I've been working on. That's really, really it, to be honest.
Great, having a show and a residency.
Yeah, it's good.
I came to the grad show, and wow, what a show it was! Really, first time I'd come to the grad show in Hobart, and I was blown away. Just the volume of work and the quality of work, and got a strong sense of how you're all there for each other. But also, so the residency was based off the back of the work that you'd done for your honours.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So,
Congratulations on
which was really good. So I got that award, which was really exciting. And yeah, the residency was great. I had a beautiful studio. It was amazing. Great big windows. and it was just wonderful.
I
So
did get to visit once. It was a
yes,
Yeah, he let you in.
very handsome studio.
yes, was a very, very nice studio. I wish I spent a little bit more time in it, but
Alas.
that happens. Honestly, I think that studio was used more to just sort of sit and contemplate
Yeah.
and
Which is
just sort of sit with my own
sometimes
thoughts.
that's what they're for.
And sometimes, yeah, absolutely.
Safe
that's what they're
space to sit and contemplate and work through our problems.
Yeah, Maggie talked about that in the podcast, in the episode with Maggie. Yeah, look, and so July, you're working towards a body of work for
Yes.
July to show at Salamanca Arts
for.
Centre.
To show at something like the Arts Centre. So they have a gallery called Social Gallery, which is along that Salamanca strip.
Yeah.
So I'll be showing in there in July. And I've been doing a couple little paintings, but it's still very fresh and I'm still trying to figure out what sort of it's mainly going to be about. So,
Yeah.
And that's exciting. It's like making a potion. It's like, what themes am I going to throw in this time? How am I going to piece it all together? And it's so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
That sort of like initial stage of figuring out what everything is going to be about. Sometimes you go, oh, I've just hit the jackpot. And then you find something else and you go, no, I don't need that anymore.
Right.
And then you go and then it's like, oh, maybe I'll bring a little bit more back in. It's just like, it's a bit messy at the moment, but it's like fun. It's just putting all the ingredients together,
I can feel it.
making a soup.
Yeah, I'm just feeling this energy coming out of you, Jacob. It's like, yeah, no, you're in your element.
My manic element.
Nice. Jess, what are you working on?
Well, perhaps a slightly different tangent. As I mentioned at the start, that I identify as an activist, but giving into activism circles a bit more, because my honours project was a lot based around, can you create belonging, not just communal belonging with people, but with the more than human world, nature as well.
Yeah.
I figured out if I'm going to create belonging with nature, I'd need to be able to stand up for nature should it need to, as well as other things, because I've joined this group called Grant, which starts for Grassroots Action Network Tasmania. I joined that early in the year, in my honours year, so it sort of almost grew alongside my honours project did. However, since graduating the honours program, a local Palawa Aboriginal elder, who's quite famous in activist circles, is Uncle Jim Everett. No, I'm not going to remember his Palawa name, sorry. But, however, he did a national call out, asking for 20 days of action in January, which we're coming towards the end of now. And so Grant sort of did their first forest blockade camp, which I've been at for the last 5 days. And then, as well as since the 5th, we've been doing 20 days of actions. I suppose not every single day, but every other day and that sort of thing. And so that's still feeding backwards and forwards with my making practice.
Yeah.
As well as sort of adjusting to a space that isn't the art school and trying to make myself comfortable here and doing watercolours and stuff instead of just printmaking and photography all the time. Yeah.
No, it's, thanks for inviting us into the space.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Deborah Wace talked about this activism in Deborah's episode about how art can be a really powerful form of activism, to sing a song or to paint or to photograph or to make prints or to be able to, as you say, to give voice to the voiceless.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's the art intertwined in every bit. Like you have a fundraising festival or something, which is how we kicked off this period of activism that a lot of musicians performed at. Or you're making T-shirts to raise money, or you're making banners, or some rascals might spray paint on walls. But I don't know any of them. However, they're so intertwined.
Yeah.
It's almost like the history of art.
Yeah, indeed.
Is activists.
Indeed. Yeah.
Connection to place.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's conceptual stuff that we could go into there, but
Sure.
let's that other question I had. It's like, why are we here together today? So you've told us about how you came together at art school, and now the last month, it's only a month, but you've each finding new paths, not necessarily alone, but you're finding new paths. Do you see yourselves trying to work together? Do you keep the friendship? You know,
Yeah.
why did you approach me and say we want to do this together?
That's a good question.
I think we got really excited about being able to talk about our experiences especially with honours, because I think both of us with honours, it was, you know, everyone obviously who does honours works really, really hard, but it's such a huge step up from undergrad, and it's not easy. It's hard work, and I think we just wanted to talk about how much it helped us,
Yeah.
and how much it actually helps you to figure out those nuances to your practice and to actually create a tangible practice that you're comfortable talking about, you know, once you leave and take flight out after you finish uni. And I think that is just so valuable. And that's built off friendships and all sorts of different relationships as well, you know, and just learning from teachers as well who've been doing this for years, and it's just so valuable. Hard work, like really hard work. Like it's not, you know, it's not easy, but it's. I think that's what makes it fun. You're testing yourself, and I just testing everything, testing the waters, I guess maybe.
Yeah. You had so many guests before that talked about their experiences in the honours program in different places, like Maggie had.
Yeah,
And I thought it'd be great to talk to
yeah.
recent graduates.
Clearly, you're at this incredibly important moment in any art school graduate's life of what now, where next. And that's why I ask you, why together? Do you see your journeys in parallel? Do you see, I mean, obviously we can't look too far in the future. You're only a month out of it. But perhaps the benefit question then is, how does it feel to be here, right, or not necessarily in the interview, but where you've just come back from Camp Jez, Jacob, you just finished your residency, and you've each been taking a bit of time out. So how does it feel to be where you're at, and how do you intend to carry this sort of shared belonging forward together?
Good question.
Very good. Oh, that's why you asked
Very
the
good
questions.
question. Yeah.
I don't know. Wow, I really don't know.
I just think whether we continue parallel to each other or we go in different ways, I think again it comes back to, I guess it just comes back to friendship and community. I think whether you're on the other side of the world, you know, you're still going to have friends in different places, and I think valuing those friendships wherever they are will still help you move forward in your practice and evolve it as well. So I just think, you know, whether, I don't know, if we do a show together or something like that, it's just, you know, not literally, but I guess in a, just supporting each other, and just that's what it's about, I think.
You don't necessarily have to have practices that are literally intertwined for your sort of friendships to still be evolved and strong and inform your practices.
Yeah, yeah. When we did last meet, you were talking about maybe trying to get a studio together. Is that important to share a space?
Not sure it's as important as we thought it was at the time. I had this thought, I think I verbalised it to you at the time as well, was that I have this strong feeling inside me personally that as artists or makers of any kind, we will find a way to make. Making will happen. We need to get it out of us, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
However, space and facilities to show that work is worth its weight in gold, because you won't necessarily like I could open up this garage for an afternoon and have a pop-up show or something like that.
Yeah.
However, it's like good, consistent ways to facilitate showing of art is really what I think is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And there perhaps aren't enough opportunities to do that. You had this great opportunity where, you spent a year or just less than a year just bouncing stuff back and forth, seeing other work, and then suddenly you got to go out and search for that yourselves.
Yep.
It's not easy to find. It's not easy to put in place either. So, what would be your ideal? How if to get your work out there into the world, to keep having those sort of crypt type encounters, or just being able to interact with other artists, and to keep growing your practice, to keep practicing. What does it need? What do you feel is the way that could be done?
Definitely, obviously, with the idea last year towards the end of honours, getting a group of people together and trying to find a space to rent out where we can build studios. That's a pretty, I guess, general way to put it, or idea of it, to make a space to facilitate that. But of course, it's not that easy. But I think I don't know. It's difficult. I think we're still in the stage of trying to figure it out, and it's because it is quite fresh after leaving.
Sure.
So, but I think even this, doing a fun podcast is helpful because we're talking about all this stuff that we're probably going to have to talk about, down the track when we have shows or all those kinds of things. So. I think just anything you can get your hands on, I think, is really good.
You're just almost not starved, but you're hungry for stuff.
Yeah. What does it look like? So we, you mentioned printmaking, Jez, and Jacob painting, but I mean, I saw your work at the Honours Show. Each of your work just mind blowing, and I got a sneak preview as well. So I had even more time to contemplate than most people. So really, huge privilege. Thank you for inviting me in for that.
So welcome.
And Jacob, you did say that you, it's all just in this sort of idea stage or whatever it is. But so what do you think it's going to look like? You'll keep painting. You'll
keep painting.
What do you paint?
Well, at the moment, I'm painting big, large-scale works, sort of just sitting the canvas on the ground and just really going quite crazy. A process that I picked up and talked a lot about in my honours was automatic drawing, which is a traditional surrealist method of tapping into true psyche. So it's just sort of being really quick and trying not to think about what you're making and how it's happening. Just letting the body and the mind sort of work together and just, I don't know, I guess spew it out onto the page or canvas. And so I think as a way for me to figure out ideas is also just continuing to practice that with drawing and also painting as well. So initially, I guess, drawing on the canvas quickly and getting that out. And I think that turned into a really useful process to talk about my specific ideas in my honours and how I got those to materialise. But it's also helping me think of new ones. So I might, draw something or paint something in, and that might sort of elicit something very specific in, I guess, this subconscious realm, which sounds a bit silly. And then I'll just kind of riff off that for a while. And at the moment, that's what it is. It's this sort of messy primordial stage of just letting things just happen and then picking parts out of it. And yeah, it's just very messy, but like good messy.
You're bringing the subconscious or the unconscious
Yeah.
into consciousness, and then you can make decisions
Yep.
about it. That's the process I talk about in my book. Rick Rubin's book's also
Very
good
cool.
on that too.
Yeah, okay.
Which you're reading right now.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Might have to
Now
read
then,
that
you
then.
don't have, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I get it entirely. It's affect. You're bringing that felt experience that is hard to put into words onto the page, onto the canvas, and then, okay, what have I got?
Yep. 100%.
Now well, you showed me some of your work in the art school, Jez, and you had that. I'm going to call it stone. What was it?
A litho stone.
Yeah, your big litho stone. Now, obviously, you can't bring that here. And you did say you're painting watercolors.
Oh, I miss it. Oh, sorry. You build up a relation. For anybody who's done lithography, it's an old printmaking method. You build up this relationship with this stone because it takes so long to get a print off of it, and then sometimes the prints don't work, and so it's like this. It's like a relationship. It's like a romantic relationship sometimes with your litho stone, and I miss my litho stones dearly.
Yeah, I bet. So what's next?
Oh, I imagine that it's a lot like my practice is a thought process, and or an investigation or a problem solving process, and I use different methods depending on what problem I'm approaching. So each not problem makes it sound negative. That's not necessarily what I'm after, but each exhibition, let's say I do an exhibition or a show or something, I might need to think about it in a different way. So there might be metalwork, sculptures, or woodwork, piece of furniture, or collage, or just a print or a photograph. Yeah.
Hence the multidisciplinarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And perhaps because a lot of my thought process during honours was about belonging with place rather than in a place, that I was interested in seeing how that's affected if I were to move for a while. And especially if I was to move to an ancestral homeland, because a lot of my family comes from Britain and Ireland. But that's more long-term goals, I suppose.
I guess that's the value of the honours degree is the fact that you get to actually really delve deep.
Think very hard.
Think very hard.
Yeah, right. Why am I doing this? What's this all about?
You really figure out those deeply rooted and emotional parts of yourself that you're pouring into your practice.
True.
And it's quite confronting sometimes.
Absolutely.
And really, really quite emotional, trying to talk about it throughout the year because it becomes so ingrained in who you are and what you're making. And it's hard. It's hard to figure that out because, it's confronting everything that you've ever experienced, throughout your life, and channeling it into an artwork and then putting that on display for the world to see and talk about it and having to explain all of that emotional sort of stuff behind it is a lot. But it's just feels so good once you get to that stage. It's really, really good.
Absolutely.
And it really helps you figure out a practice.
Wouldn't it be great, you use the term conversation, wouldn't it be great if we could find new ways to keep these conversations going?
Yeah.
To forge these conversations so we can keep thinking deeply, and so that we don't feel so alone, that we can belong together and experience each other's processes as well as just the finished artwork.
Yeah, totally. Because it's this very unique connection, obviously. Like, I love everyone that I was with at art school, and everybody at Grant, the Grassroots Action Network that I'm a part of. But I can't explain to them or talk to them or have the same experiences that we did at art school at all. Well, I could. Some of them are very sensitive, but it's different. And vice versa, I probably can't communicate the love and affection and feeling that I do for activism to a lot of my art friends sometimes as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Look, this has been incredible. You've really tapped into some deep things that you're thinking about and things that you're feeling, and how and why, and how you're still figuring it out for yourselves, and being there for each other in that. And the world would be a much better place if we could all be as open and honest about this, and embrace a practice, whatever it is, that helps us to keep exploring these things. Look, I'm wrapping up. We've talked about the future, and we don't know what it looks like, but I'm sure people want to follow your progress. How can they find you?
Social media, Instagram.
What's your handle?
My handle is Jacob.Oshan. So the first 4 letters of my last name, Oshan. And if that fails, then it's O'Shaughnessy at the end. Yeah. Jacob.O'Shaughnessy. Just type in those first 4 letters and you'll find it. I think that's the best way.
I should be able to remember my handle better than I do. I'm exploring a sort of professional photography avenue at the moment, but that's very early days. So that's Hemming_Blad. Like for any photography nerds out there, it's a play on Hasselblad. And then my sort of more art practice that dabbles in a bit of the activism and what I'm up to at Grant as well is just Jeremy Hemming Art, I think. Or if you just look up Jeremy Hemming, it'll come up, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you so much, each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
There's a lot for us to think about. And I think this is particularly useful for, really informative for anyone who's considering honours or art school, or how do I explore my practice, and what's the real benefit of going there? It's not the quality. Neither of you said, "Oh, I've got a degree. I got a qualification."
Okay, yeah. The jobs are really lining up in front of us with a fine arts degree.
Yeah, we're rolling in it.
That's the thing, right? Is you got so much more out of it than just a qualification.
100%.
That's where the value is. So
100%.
Yeah, let's keep let's work on finding these ways to keep connected. And I look forward to following your journey. It's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It was really good.
Deeply, thank you.
Thank you.